angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video I am finally going to dive into the disturbing, interesting, confusing, and freaky case of the silent twins. This has been requested by you guys for such a long time, and I kind of not avoided talking about it, but pushed it to the side because this case contains so many details and so many small facts and factors that in turn grow into these larger, more broad, important factors. So I didn't want to cover it until I could really take a day, investigate into it, and kind of pinpoint the parts that I feel are most important in breaking down the case of the silent twins and trying to figure out what on earth happened. This is actually my first time talking about a specific case with you guys. Normally I kind of explore, the more paranormal things and tell specific events that happened, but I've never really sat down and broke down a case like this with you guys. So if it's something that you guys enjoy, definitely let me know in the comments below. I really enjoy watching these types of videos, and so I know that I'll enjoy creating them, and I'm the type of person that really is detail oriented. I pay attention to a lot of smaller details that in turn, like I said, can become larger details. So I feel like it's something that I'll be pretty good at, but you guys will have to let me know. I chose this case as my first case to dive into, one, because it was super suggested, but also because it's very freaky and frightening, and I feel like it kind of ties into our 31 days of Halloween and spooky stories. So if you guys want to hear about the case of the silent twins, all you gotta do is just keep on watching today's video. Very quickly though, I would just like to say, if you are new to my channel, hi, my name is Hailey. My family on here is the Reese's Pieces, and we believe in the unbelievable. So if you enjoy my videos and you want to hear about some pretty crazy things, all you gotta do is go ahead and click that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get into this case. So Jennifer and June Gibbons were born in 1963 in Barbados, but were actually raised in Wales. Being from Barbados though, and being moved into a primarily white community, the twins suffered a lot of trauma from being bullied at a very, very small age. I actually read, you guys, that it was to the point that the principal and their teachers would allow them out of school 5 to 10 minutes early to avoid being bullied by the other students. I personally know how hard bullying in general can be, and to be bullied for something that you cannot control, such as your race or where you were born, is just unbelievably cruel and unbelievably disgusting and disturbing. So I can completely sympathize with what they went through. Even if I don't fully understand it, I can definitely understand from the being bullied standpoint and understanding how traumatizing that can be. Now, unfortunately, from them being bullied so severely, they kind of resided into this state of silence and only wanted to communicate with each other. The girls actually made up their own language, which would later be broken down into like a sped up English. However, it sounded like birds chirping, and nobody could understand what it was the girls were talking about other than themselves. Now, obviously, going into a state of seclusion and a state of isolation is a very unhealthy habit, especially to develop young. But to do it together and to make a pact to only really talk with each other formed some really unhealthy habits for the girls very, very early on. I know that one of the twins was actually quoted saying that what started out as sort of a game to only talk with each other and kind of a coping mechanism for not wanting to deal with other people turned into a very dark and twisted nightmare for them that they felt eventually they would never be able to escape. So at the age of 14, the school decided to separate the two girls. And what I mean by separate is they decided to put them into different classes, hoping that by separating them, the girls would then have no choice but to communicate with other people, to make other friends and to engage and kind of break them out of this state of such seclusion. But unfortunately, this actually did the complete opposite. In turn, the girls actually became even more isolated, even more secluded, and would go home just to lock themselves in their room and engage in a world of literature, poetry, and creative writing. Now, one Christmas, the girls were gifted leather red diaries, and they would write in these diaries different types of things and expressions. I know I had a ton of diaries. I still have some journals that I write in. Writing is a great form of expression, but nobody in their wildest dreams could imagine how dark and twisted some of the things these two girls would write were. Now, before I get into reading you guys some little snippets from these particular diaries, I want to make something very clear because I feel like it is one of those smaller details that in turn became a much larger detail. So June was actually born 10 minutes before Jennifer. Now, I actually have some friends that are twins, and they used to have the joke of like, I'm 2 minutes older than you, or I'm whatever minutes older than you, and it was kind of like their way of jokingly being superior to their twin. But all of the twins that I know did this in good fun. However, it was actually said that Jennifer felt less superior than her sister due to her being born first. She always felt this sense of competition with her sister, that her sister was always prettier even though they looked identical, that her sister was wiser and stronger and just overall better than her. Now, supposedly, June actually started to catch some of these vibes from Jennifer. She started to feel that sense of envy, that sense of Jennifer living in June's shadow, so to speak. And so what a lot of people didn't realize was that although they spent all of their time together, and although they only spoke in their secret language to one another, they were actually growing a great deal of hatred and resentment towards one another, which in itself is a very freaky concept, if you ask me. So I'm gonna read you guys some snippets from June's diary, and then after I'm gonna read you guys a snippet from Jennifer's diary, which was later discovered and kind of unveiled and revealed the dark truth of their relationship. Okay, so here is a snippet from June's diary. She wants us to be equal. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal. Someone is driving her insane. It is me. Now, moving on, I'm going to read you guys a little snippet out of Jennifer's diary now. Jennifer writes, "We have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. We feel the irritating deadly rays come out of our bodies, stinging each other's skin. I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible? Without my shadow, would I die? Without my shadow, would I gain life, be free, or left to die? Without my shadow, which I identify with a face of misery, deception, murder." So, I mean, their relationship was extremely unhealthy, not only because they only were with one another daily, locking themselves in their room, but also because they deep down had this sense of resentment and this sense of they could not live while they were both living. They could not lead a normal life. And this would later turn out to be deadly for one of them. So the girls turned to writing. They wrote and they wrote. They wrote plays, they wrote poetry, they wrote things in their diary, and I think it's been pretty well known that they wanted to become recognized for their writing. That was their goal. However, once they realized that their writing wasn't getting them the attention or the recognition that they so desperately craved, things took a really negative turn for the girls. Now, I read somewhere that at the age of 18, both girls lost their virginity to these American boys. And when the American boys left them in the dust, and on top of that, their writing careers were not careers at all and were not giving them the fame and the recognition that they craved, the girls resorted into petty crimes. They would steal, they would choke each other, basically anything and everything for attention. But it wasn't until the girls started to burn down buildings that they ended up having to go to court, and I believe were arrested, and this whole entire thing just blew up in their face. Now, once the girls went to court for these crimes they were committing, these arsons, they were actually deemed mentally unstable. And so they weren't charged for their crimes, but they were actually put into a high security mental institution. Now, the girls were put on opposite sides of the institution. Their cells or their rooms, cells, you know what I mean, were on opposite sides. And the behavior that the nurses noted is just chilling. The nurses would have both of the twins on opposite sides of the institution, but they would be frozen in the same positions or doing the same things, and it was completely unexplainable because they couldn't see each other to know what one another was doing. They started to create these strange behaviors where, for an example, one of them would starve for a whole day and the other one would indulge in mass amounts of food. And then the next day they would switch and the other one would starve and the other one would eat. They started to inflict pain upon themselves and others and just really demonstrating this abnormal behavior. Now, eventually it was brought to the attention of the institution that they weren't as high risk as everybody had thought they were, and that they didn't need to occupy a space in a maximum security mental institution. So they were actually moved into a lower security institution. Now, around this time, they were actually befriended by a journalist by the name of Marjorie Wallace. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. I am super sorry if I've mispronounced that. And she was a writer and a journalist who wanted to learn more about these twins. She had heard about their story and found them just so incredibly fascinating, and wanted to create a biography on them. Now, eventually they actually befriended her, and I guess they communicated with her, which was really odd for them and really interesting as well. Now, right before the silent twins were transferred to yet another mental institution, they were around 31 at this time, Marjorie was visiting the twins, and over a cup of tea between the three of them, Jennifer went ahead and says, and I quote, "Marjorie, Marjorie, I'm going to have to die." And so obviously this was extremely alarming behavior. These were extremely alarming words, and she begins to say, "What do you mean, Jennifer? What do you mean you have to die? You are only 31, you have your whole life ahead of you, there's no reason for you to die." And Jennifer's simple but terrifying answer was, "Because we've decided." Now, these girls basically thought within their own minds that in order to lead a normal life, one of them would have to die. It's as though they felt that while living in this world together, they would never lead a normal life. But if one of them died, they would in turn be able to lead a normal life. Now, March of 1993, the twins were being transferred. This was shortly after the conversation with Marjorie. And upon arriving to the new institution, Jennifer was extremely unresponsive. She was rushed to the hospital and later pronounced dead. Cause of death being natural, and was said to have been because of swelling or extreme swelling of her heart. They checked, there was no sign of poison, there was no sign of any sort of foul play, and it was just ruled natural causes. Now, when June was interviewed on the death, or interrogated, or just asked about the death of her sister, Jennifer, she said that Jennifer laid her head on her shoulder, said that she was going to die now, her words were slurred, and she fell asleep on her with her eyes open. Interestingly enough, After the passing of her twin sister, June went on to lead a relatively normal life. She no longer needed to be institutionalized. She led a relatively normal life. She moved near her parents and functioned in modern day society. But I want to read you guys something that I find terrifying. And it's the headstone on Jennifer's grave, and it was written by June. It's a poem. And the poem says, "We once were two, we two made one. We no more two, through life be one. Rest in peace." I'm gonna read that one more time, okay? We once were two, we two made one. We no more two, through life be one. Rest in peace. And that is basically where the case of the silent twins runs cold. I mean, given the fact that they had said they decided one had to die, given the talk from their diaries, it leads to foul play. But I mean, she died of natural causes, which makes this case all the more chilling and all the more terrifying. Now, given what she had written for the headstone, I personally think, just gathering from my own research and what I've gathered in researching this, I feel like they felt like they were one person and that they could not function in society as two separate people unless one of them were to go, and then there would only be one and they could live a normal life. But this case in general just leaves room for so many questions, and it has to be one of the most interesting yet confusing cases I've dug into. What do you guys think took place with the silent twins? What do you guys think of this case? I have mixed feelings. I don't really know what to think, but nonetheless, I wanted to talk about it here on my channel. If you guys enjoy videos like this, definitely let me know, because this is the kind of thing that I would love to start just slowly bringing into my channel as well, and talking about different cases across the world that are just chilling and unexplainable. I mean, we believe in the unbelievable, so I feel like it's very fitting for this channel. If you guys enjoyed today's video but you are not yet subscribed, please go ahead, click that subscribe button. I post a ton of videos. I am posting every single day for the month of October, so you definitely don't want to miss that. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. It makes my heart super, super happy. So please do that. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until next time, I love you.